little child, gentle-hearted, meek, and oof. All of this except oof was a quotation from the Child Sir Lancelot as conceived by Mrs. Laura Rubush. Choking upon it, Penrod slid down from the fence, and with slow and thoughtful steps entered a one-storied wing of the stable, consisting of a single apartment, floored with cement, and used as a storeroom for broken bric-a-brac, old paint buckets, decayed garden hose, worn-out carpets, dead furniture, and other condemned odds and ends not yet considered hopeless enough to be given away. In one corner stood a large box, a part of the building itself. It was 8 feet high and open at the top, and it had been constructed as a sawdust magazine from which was drawn material for the horse's bed in a stall on the other side of the partition. The big box, so high and tower-like, so commodious, so suggestive, had ceased to fulfill its legitimate function, though providentially it had been at least half full of sawdust when the horse died. 2 years had gone by since that passing, an interregnum in transportation during which Penrod's father was thinking, he explained sometimes, of an automobile. Meanwhile, the gifted and generous sawdust box had served brilliantly in war and peace. It was Penrod's stronghold. There was a partially defaced sign upon the front wall of the box. The dungeon keep had known mercantile impulses. The O.K. Rabbit Company, Penrod Schofield and Company, inquire for prices. This was a venture of the preceding vacation, and had netted at one time an accrued and owed profit of $1.38. Prospects had been brightest on the very eve of cataclysm. The storeroom was locked and guarded, but 27 rabbits and Belgian hares, old and young, had perished here on a single night, through no human agency, but in a foray of cats, the besiegers treacherously tunneling up through the sawdust from the small aperture which opened into the stall beyond the partition. Commerce has its martyrs. Penrod climbed upon a barrel, stood on tiptoe, grasped the rim of the box, then, using a knothole as a stirrup, threw one leg over the top, drew himself up, and dropped within. Standing upon the packed sawdust, he was just tall enough to see over the top. Duke had not followed him into the storeroom, but remained near the open doorway in a concave and pessimistic attitude. Penrod felt in a dark corner of the box and laid hands upon a simple apparatus consisting of an old bushel basket with a few yards of clothesline tied to each of its handles. He passed the ends of the lines over a big spool, which revolved upon an axle of wire suspended from a beam overhead, and with the aid of this improvised pulley, lowered the empty basket until it came to rest in an upright position upon the floor of the storeroom at the foot of the sawdust box. "Elevator!" shouted Penrod. "Ding, ding!" Duke, old and intelligently apprehensive, approached slowly, in a semicircular manner, deprecatingly, but with courtesy. He pawed the basket delicately, then, as if that were all his master had expected of him, uttered one bright bark, sat down, and looked up triumphantly. His hypocrisy was shallow. Many a horrible quarter of an hour had taught him his duty in this matter. "Elevator!" shouted Penrod sternly. "You want me to come down there to you?" Duke looked suddenly haggard. He pawed the basket feebly again, and upon another outburst from on high, prostrated himself flat. Again threatened, he gave a superb impersonation of a worm. "You get in that elevator!" Reckless with despair, Duke jumped into the basket, landing in a disheveled posture, which he did not alter until he had been drawn up and poured out upon the floor of sawdust with the box. There, shuddering, he lay in donut shape, and presently slumbered. It was dark in the box, a condition that might have been remedied by sliding back a small wooden panel on runners, which would have let in ample light from the alley. But Penrod Schofield had more interesting means of illumination. He knelt, and from a former soap box in a corner took a lantern, without a chimney, and a large oil can, the leak in the latter being so nearly imperceptible that its banishment from house